Hello, Jeremiah Cox here, welcoming you to another episode of Daily Progress by iiNCHES Foundation, our podcast. We're joined today by Scott Fieber and Ryler Masco. They're the founders of UnlimitAid.org, and they're doing some really important work in Central America, helping teens to have safe access to education through private schooling. They've got some really unique stories, some fun experiences and perspectives to share. So join Tim Pickett and Alema Harrington as they interview Scott and Ryler today and learn more about the work that they're doing and how we can help. Special thanks to our sponsor for this episode, Kindly MD, and check it out. Let's make some progress today.
Welcome on into our Daily Progress podcast. It is brought to you by the iiNCHES Foundation, and our sponsor, of course, is Kindly MD. Tim Pickett is here with us. Alema Harrington. We got Ryler Masco over here, and Scott Fieber is also joining us. We're going to talk about Unlimit Aid, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But thanks for being with us. We appreciate it very much. Our Daily Progress podcast with iiNCHES Foundation is all about making daily progress. And so we'll delve into those topics as it relates to the guests that we have here today. And let's start with some introductions. And Scott, if you wouldn't mind just letting us know how you end up in this seat here.
Oh boy, that's going to take a minute. But Scott Fieber. Currently, my wife and I live in Texas, San Antonio. This kind of goes back now almost 8 years when Ryler and I started the Unlimit Aid Foundation, and it's kind of a cool story. I think we can get into it at some point. We trying to do our best to help, just to your point, small, simple progress over time and help out some kids along the way.
How did the two of you connect on this project here?
Yeah, so Ryler and I actually served a church mission in El Salvador back in mid-2000s, 2006, 2008. And actually kind of lost touch. We didn't really know each other all that well while we were down in El Salvador a little bit. And it was funny enough, we were flying Southwest in Chicago, of all places. Didn't know each other there. I'm sitting like an A17, he's like A16 or something like that, or vice versa, I can't remember how it was. I'm like, I don't know, if I tapped you on the shoulder or you tapped me, he's like, hey, Fieber? I'm like, Masco? Like, what the heck? Like, what are the chances of the entire world to be one spot away on a Southwest queue line? We chatted the entire way back. We were both living in Salt Lake at the time. We chatted the entire way back, kind of like started sort of keeping in touch. And then it happened again in Chicago, of all places. The second time, we're like, this is weird. And then
we didn't even go to Chicago like that often.
No, it was
like
such a random airport.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, I ended up hiring him to come work with me at Cook Solutions Group, which is a company that I still work with today. He worked with CSG for 5 years?
Yeah.
Ended up doing super successful on the real estate side, so we kind of made a gentleman's agreement to go make more money and do more things with him and his wife versus working at CSG. And so along the way, while we were working at CSG, was when we started the Unlimit Aid Foundation. And this kind of was probably more like my thought child initially, and then Ryler, I think, shares the same affinity for youth and helping kids, especially in Central America. And so the more he and I kind of talked about it, the more we kind of said, hey, let's roll up our sleeves and do something about it, which was kind of fun. So it was more along just I was having some struggles mentally, I would say, with just purpose in life. So you go and serve 2 years doing nothing but focusing on everybody but yourself, right? So think about that. Like, you're not worrying about food, you're not worrying about money, schooling, family, anything, but every day you wake up and you go figure out how I can serve these people, right? Fast forward, you come home, and all of a sudden everything just takes a complete 180. You're now focusing on yourself. How do I make money? Where am I going to live? Who am I going to marry? What am I going to study for school? What's my career going to be? And it seemed like so self-centered, and like it was, I don't know, just personally, I mentally had a struggle with that. Like, this is not what life's about, like the greater purpose, eternal ramifications on things. And we kind of dealt with it for a while. My wife and I, we got married. We've been married now 16 years, have 3 kids, have a great career. Like, everything was working on that front well. And it kind of came to a head, about 8 years ago, where I kind of said, you know what, like, just not feeling that long-term gratification of really helping somebody that's going to have some eternal, ramifications on that. And that's kind of where one thing led to another, and we kind of said, you know what, let's do something. We've been blessed enough to have some money. We've been blessed enough to have a family. We should let other people realize and experience what that feels like. And so we know they're better place than to go back to El Salvador and back to Guatemala, where we've knew people and started like slowly but surely finding these kids and finding these families and hearing their stories, and said, well, how can we help, right? And for those that probably don't know, El Salvador specifically has struggled with gang violence for decades, right? It's the home of the MS-13, the biggest, I think it is the biggest gang in the world. Major influence here in the United States now as well. And while we were down there, we saw the impacts of those gangs, especially on kids. You're talking 10, 11-year-old kids being recruited into this, making life choices, which they shouldn't be, right, at that age. But knowing that, hey, just the life of drugs and gang violence is the way to do things if you want to have any sort of normal life, which is sad. And so we went down there and did our first trip to Guatemala, and we saw how much the public school system was influencing these kids towards gang violence. It was a shocker. Like, you'd think that'd be a sanctuary. You can go here to get some freedom for a minute while you're at school. And it's the exact opposite. These principals, in some cases, are recruiting kids into gangs, right? And teachers are involved in this. It's like, man, there's something wrong here. And then couple that with how cheap and inexpensive private education was, we thought, holy cow, we can probably do something here. And so the idea initially was just, hey, can we help one or two kids? Like, wasn't any sort of grandiose idea of being more than we should be. But you put God into anything, and you'll realize that He's got bigger plans. And sure enough, over the years now, it's been dozens of kids that have gone through, and we've helped out. And as you start interviewing them and you're hearing some of these stories, I mean, it'll make you cry as you just see these kids and get to know them. And now here we are, 8 years later, and helping tons of kids. We've had our first kids graduate a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, which is kind of fulfilling to see them go through that journey for several years with us. That I'm confident, had we not done what we've done, they wouldn't have come anywhere near graduating with a high school diploma. So that's the short and sweet story, I guess, of it. There's a lot of details I'm probably forgetting on that, but so now we're here, and we're hoping that today on this podcast maybe we can get the word out a little bit more and kind of help paint the vision of what we're trying to accomplish.
I think about, and Tim, you can speak to this, how the whole thing started with you looking for a repurposing of your life, coming back from a 2-year service mission where you're serving other people.
Trying to grab
how
that
is,
piece.
right? Because you're feeling like, I feel like I'm unfulfilled here. And that's a dark place to be, and then to find something like this.
Don't you think that's so? In my experience, you're a little young to have that switch.
Yeah, not even
switch
graduated
over
college
to
yet, right?
Yeah,
that I guess seeking for that purpose was happening as you return.
I was like first semester in college thinking, what the heck am I? This sucks.
And then to actually make that 8 years ago, the start of like, what's your legacy going to look like in 20, 30 years, and to actually start the journey towards something that will, I don't know, thinking about it personally, right? Like what you might be seeking on your own. I feel like that's something that most of the time people who are a little further along do. So what's kind of cool about that is you have a longer, like this journey has a longer lifespan potentially.
Sure.
And so you could really ramp it up more because you got started a little bit sooner.
I've been on this kick lately, this is like a super recent kick, but it seems like mentally I can't wrap my head around work your entire life, retire at 65, 70, whatever like the United States says we have to retire at, and then start to do these things when you can't, you can barely walk, and you can't, sure, you might have more money at that point, but it's like, man, I would rather start giving back now while you're fully capable, you're fully cognitive, you can do anything you want to. But I think if we sit there and think, well, I can't do it because I don't have the money or I don't have the resources, I think it's just a limitation we put on ourselves, because you can go find that, right? You get to know people, and again, you put God first on this stuff, it's incredible what He'll open up for you. And I think we've seen that time and time again, where we've been stressing out about how we're going to pay the tuition payment for these kids. And guys, I can't tell you how many times it's been to the last second. Honestly, we'll be putting all of our efforts that we can to make it happen. and then we fall short, and then all of a sudden, here's a check. Here's someone that says, hey, Scott, we were thinking about you guys as a family, we want to donate, and it's the exact amount of money we need. It's like, how does this keep happening? It's cool to see what God can do, I guess, with a willing person, to your point, I guess, no matter what the age is, to then take it to the next level. He's asking for someone, I guess, to be an instrument, and we're trying to do that.
One of the things that I find intriguing about this program is that you're taking kids from the States to go to, Central America to get involved in these service projects, and rather maybe you can speak to this. The impact, just like it had on you to start the foundation, and how it has boosted your sense of purpose for these kids. I don't know what their intention is as they're going, we're going to go on a fun trip to Guatemala. I don't know what that ends up looking like, but the result, I think, even as I'm watching videos of some of the experiences that they're having, this is probably I don't know if this is over dramatic, but it's life changing because we're talking about you getting started, the two of you at a younger age. Just think of the impact that it's having on these youth that are going on these trips.
Yeah, so to kind of go back to some of the motivation to start, it was also looking at how impactful going to El Salvador was for us in our missions, right? I grew up in Manti, Utah. I had I wasn't rich by any means, but grew up just fine and had a great life. But it was a shell shock to me when I went to El Salvador and saw what a third world country's like, and et cetera.
What were the living?
My first area, the majority of the houses that I visited and went into had dirt floors. Mm-hmm. They'd use that corrugated tin roofing, and doors would just be made out of any metal that they could find.
What year
corrugated.
Is this that you
2005 to 7 for me, 2006 to 8 for him. We overlapped a little bit. That's where we met.
It's just kind of wild to think in 2000 you're still seeing families living like
right.
that.
Remember the iPhone comes out in 07.
Oh my gosh. Everything came out while we were gone. I remember coming back on Facebook and iPhone and
you can hack in the iPhone.
So part of the shocker probably that went into my heart was not only am I coming back to this feeling, but everything in the world was different when we left, and it was only 2 years. It was bananas. But anyway,
And so that was so for me, I have 2 kids, he has 3 kids. We were like, okay, I want my kids to have experiences that will prepare them and actually help them understand that not everybody lives as comfortably as we do, and to have some sympathy, and also to help them really truly appreciate what they have. Yeah. And that not only was motivated by our own kids, and then we thought, well, why can't we let other kids experience it, right? Because a lot of charities focus on those in need financially, but we also wanted to help maybe kids that are fine financially here in the U.S., but maybe need a life-changing event, or maybe just want to experience something greater than themselves. And so that was the motivation to then take trips to Guatemala and El Salvador. I've been back, multiple times even before we started the charity, just because I fell in love with the people. But that was the motivation, was to not only take our own kids, which we both did this trip. I've taken my son, he's 6 now. He's been to El Salvador and Guatemala twice. And so, to not only take our own kids, but like other kids, to really experience it, to help them appreciate what they have, what we have, right? This amazing country that we live in, and to really understand that there's so much more that they can do than just around them themselves, right? And so we just went in November, and I think all the kids we took it. There's always a little bit of shock right at the beginning, but once they caught on, man, it was fire. It was pretty painting cool and all sorts of stuff for a school. One of the schools that we send a lot of these kids to in Guatemala, we gave service there, and they really caught hold of it. And some of them were in these little groups trying to talk their broken Spanish that they can, and trying to use some. And some of them are speaking English to our kids, which is also fun to see them, trying to speak each other's languages and stuff like that.
The nonverbal communication was incredible, actually. So we did, so it's funny, down there, the school year ends in November. So it's their summer break is December, January. Yeah. And so we went down as partially a service project, but also then to celebrate the kids that just everyone in our program last year graduated with honors, which was really cool to see.
That's fantastic.
So we're like, hey, let's celebrate this. Let's get all the families and the friends. And so we had 16 of us that came down in November. And we rented a house, it had a pool table, I think, and basically a yard. But it was funny, without any prompting on our side, the kids just started gelling, and they couldn't talk to each other. I mean, no one's that we broke. We took one kid that could speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Nobody else could speak Spanish, but they were sitting in groups and just learning and teaching each other words and having fun, playing pool, and like it was
using body language.
It was incredible to watch just how they kind of oriented themselves to figure that out. But yeah, it was fun.
What are the mechanics of the nonprofit? So you provide education services, you provide funding. What exactly does the nonprofit do? And then how do people get involved here, like mechanically? What's the system look like?
Yeah, there's a couple pieces. So again, it's twofold in the fact that Ryler's on point here. We want to help connect the youth from here with the youth from down there because there's perspective to be gained on both sides, right? Yeah. There's a lot of perception down there saying, hey, you can't have a living in Central America. You got to get to the United States. And if you want to have any sort of successful life, which isn't true, there's so much opportunity down there. So it's saying, get your education, stay in the country, and help build your country up. That's a big piece of ours. And so I think helping the kids kind of see that perspective from both sides, they can realize that. But then to Ryler's point, the kids here who sometimes, for lack of a better word, sometimes spoiled brats or just doesn't realize like everything that they do have and how bad it could be, to start taking, I guess, that not for granted, right? So the vision is kind of twofold, right? Is how can we help kids from here get out of the country, see what life's like, and then use that perspective however they will, right? So it's not, I've always just said, like, it's not whether or not you go serve a mission for the church or you go join the military or you go join the Peace Corps. I don't care what you do, in my opinion, but like every kid should get out of the country at some point in those teen years and realize before you start making career decisions. So that's one thought, is like, hey, let's give them that experience. But then, the main focus down there is to help these kids get out of the public school system into a private education where they can thrive and give themselves a chance. We believe in 4 pillars, right? One is educational, right? The next is economic, which should come if you have an education, family, and spiritual. Those are kind of our 4 pillars of a chair. So part of our contract that we have these kids sign is you have to have God in your life. I don't care what church you go to, but Christ has to be part of your life. So we want them joining and attending a church, being involved in Christ at some point, because not everyone can have families. In fact, most of the kids that we support are coming from broken families where dad's passed away or in jail or mom's gone or they're being raised by grandma and grandpa or something else along those lines, where we'll kind of be their temporary family to a point where the kids in the organization become part of their family as well. So kind of building that family temporarily until they can have their own family, start their own family for themselves. And then, you get the education, and then the economic stuff will come in time. So it's kind of multifaceted, I guess, to your point. And then I guess to answer your last question on how people can help out, it's not just the money, to be honest. Like, yes, money is awesome and it helps, but we try to do a monthly Zoom call with these kids too and bring in mentors that can give them perspective also, right? Someone that maybe was from Guatemala that does have a good education, that does have their family, that does have God in their life, to show them like, hey, there's more to life than being in a gang. Yeah. There's more than life than being what dad was or what mom chose to be. So we're always at a lack, I feel like, for people that can jump on those calls and say, hey, let me kind of give you my experience. And so having someone, and sometimes it's tough because you need to speak Spanish, right? That can jump in and say, hey, yeah, guys, I was in your shoes at one point. Or, hey, maybe I wasn't exactly in that shoe, but I've done this with my life and you can do the same, kind of a thing. So it's just, again, there's so much that can be done to help these kids just have that perspective that, okay, I've got a golden opportunity here. I'm going to take the advantage of it to the fullest and go as far as I can with it, and kind of get those four pillars on there. Yeah, 4 leg chairs, however you want to call it, but just those 4 foundational pieces.
You mentioned the difficulty for the youth coming up, even in the educational system, because there's times when they're being recruited into a gang while they're at school by school administration. I'm curious, what kind of pushback you get, or are there people down there that see what you're doing and they're like, man, I wish somebody had done that for me? Or is there a resistance to the point where you might need some security around you?
So far, I don't think so. I think everybody that we've helped out has been in a situation where they've been accepting and excited about it. A lot of times, the kids we're picking, like you said, kind of have a broken system that nobody's even supporting them, or nobody's even really sometimes aware of these
They're
kids.
off the radar. Yeah.
They're off the radar to the general public. And we make sure we pick schools that have the same values of,
Private schools.
Private schools. Yeah, we make sure we pick private schools that we know are teaching these kids how to be a good person in society, how to balance their own lives, how to make sure that they can be successful. And down in Guatemala and El Salvador, if you graduate high school, you can go to college for free. Mm-hmm. So just getting out of high school is a huge accomplishment, and then from there, it's up to them to build their own success. But they can go to college for free, and so that's our goal, is to get them to that point. Obviously, at some point, they're going to have to spread their wings, but we're hoping they'll do that with the free education. But so far, I think we have had nothing but,
Maybe as it grows and we become a bigger fish. in the
Yeah,
pond,
and how do you
potentially,
find the kids? How do you find the kids who you can help then? Because if they're off the radar or they're in the system, right? Like, so my wife is a elementary school principal.
Okay.
In a school with a lot of immigrant families, but it's right in the middle of downtown Bountiful, which you don't think of as a heavy immigrant population or refugees. But so somebody like her, now granted, down there maybe she's recruiting people for the gangs, but here she's not. Okay? She's not. But she would know, or the teachers would know. Oh, well, this kid's doesn't fit perfectly in the classroom, could do better in the private system, right? Like, okay, that's easy. Yeah. But is that the same type of system down there? Do you have like a network?
You mentioned that you actually have other people that you served missions with that are actively involved in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Guatemala.
Yeah.
And that, I'm sure, is helpful.
I don't think it would have been possible, to be honest, without them. So it was funny because, several of our companions were Guatemalan. Mm-hmm. And then oddly enough, when we started, I would say probably all except for maybe a handful, for me at least. But it was funny when we went down for the very first time. My wife reminded me about this. All of them were serving as bishops at the time. Yeah. Which, as part of being a bishop, you're intimately involved with the teenage group in your church, and so they know, and then they know their friends, and they just very in tune with their area and what's going on, and so. Yeah, so our first trip down, they lined up everything. I said, hey, we're coming down. This is our purpose. They said, cool, we'll line up the interviews. And they had family upon family upon family and kid upon kid. And we had to make the hard choices early on and say, we're going to take you guys, but we can't take you guys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because, again, the idea initially was just want to take one or two, right? And, again, money's a real thing. And so every time we go down there, just this last time we were down there, too, there was, I think, 5 new families that interviewed us. Luckily, we took all 5 of them this time. But you hear their story, and you're just like, oh, I can't say no. You have to say yes. And again, let God figure out the finances later. So yes, we have a liaison down there who works with these kids day in and day out. He helps get the payments to the schools on time. He keeps an eye on them, make sure they're going to church, make sure they're getting their grades figured out. And without that, we'd be traveling down there a bunch trying to figure that out. So he's been a huge help for us, and not just him, but we've had several that have worked throughout the years now with us, especially when we're doing some, and we had some students in El Salvador for the first couple of years too that graduated out. But.
Yeah, and that's why we did Guatemala and El Salvador, because while we served there, we didn't have as many connections in El Salvador for people that that we would trust to send thousands of dollars to handle money for other kids, right? Whereas in Guatemala, we had a lot more connections, places to stay and stuff like that. But and we haven't actually been able to accept every kid, not just necessarily because of monetary reasons. There were some kids that you could tell didn't want to do it. They weren't going to agree to not do drugs. They weren't going to agree to do the things that we asked them to do as part of being sponsored by us. And so that was something I was a little shocked by. And then we've had some kids, that not many, maybe one that hasn't completed or hasn't gone through after we've sponsored them.
Yep.
So the majority do, almost all do, but there's some kids that still, even with being sponsored.
Well, you would think as the program grows, that number's just going to be a percentage of, right? Like we do healthcare that's integrated behavioral healthcare. We get people off of opioids. Not everybody's going to,
exactly.
And not everybody's going to follow the same timeline as everybody else. right? Some people
Oh,
are
yeah.
going to come in and out, right?
Yep, 100%.
Just like anything.
Yeah.
Well, it's been
You're
interesting too
exactly
because we brought on some kids that are well beyond what you classify as a high school senior, but they're starting freshman year in high school because they've not been going to school or they've been working at the family tienda or wherever they're at doing, and they just haven't been focusing on school. And so we're like, okay, like so you got a 16-year-old sitting, you know, with a bunch of 8th graders, and you doing the thing, right? And so it's been interesting, like, especially from like a friendship and trying to keep them integrated into that school system to keep them focused and wanting to stay forward with it.
I think that peer support is such an important part of any type of therapy. It's, you know, the group therapy is going to be your most successful and effective way to treat probably, you know, the majority of certainly mental health issues like addiction, which is my background. And so I'm curious, the kids that have gone down there, do they, you know, text back and forth with these kids that are still in Guatemala? Do they, you know,
Yeah,
jump
do they
on a
WhatsApp
FaceTime?
them?
Yeah,
WhatsApp.
Right.
You know, do they stay connected?
We gotta ask the kids. Actually, I know they exchanged information. We have not followed up on that.
Yeah,
yet.
like a pen pal program.
luckily-
That was the idea
Right.
initially. Is like
Yeah,
somehow
yeah.
connect.
Luckily, social media helps with that,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
I
Sure.
mean, we lost touch with a lot of people when we were down there because, you know, Facebook had only just started by the time we got back, so it was hard to reconnect. But now it's so much easier. I know they were exchanging info.
Yeah, back then you could only call home once every while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, now it's every
Oh
week.
yeah, every
Yeah,
week
yeah, yeah.
they got us
They
so
got
lucky.
songs on them.
Week,
Yeah.
they got soft.
Yeah. My last missionary, I was in touch with them all the time. It's like, oh, okay, stop calling me.
Go do something else.
One thing to play off what Scott said is sometimes it's not just motivation or the cost of private school that's keeping these kids. It's that they're actually earning the income for the family. So
Right,
at
they're
12 years
contributing,
old, they're
so they
contributing.
can't- so they can't participate as much.
Exactly. And so sometimes it's helping just with a living wage for the family,
Sure.
so that the
So that
kids
the kid
can
can
to
go
school.
back to school.
Yeah, because they'll send them to, you know, coffee farms or whatever from 8 years old down there.
Yeah, we have several students actually on that where they work Monday through Friday and they go to school Saturday and Sunday. We found some schools that allow them to do that, and they got their high school education that way, which is, I mean, good on them. Like, I don't know if I was 16, 17, if I would have had the wherewithal to say, yeah, I'm going to do extra overtime like that, work 7 days a week to get my education, but they're doing it.
I got two. I mean, I'm burning two questions in my mind, and that is one is, and this comes from my experience in like a healthcare company that, you know, did an IPO, and you want to scale this thing.
Yeah.
How does this scale, or does it? Is it better suited to what you're doing now in this small? Maybe you think it's big, maybe it's small. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the vision of the future?
The needs are unlimited, in my opinion. No pun intended.
Unlimited.
Unlimited. But yeah, it's I think resources and money. Like, I guess we probably put a bunch of stuff into resources. But yeah, I mean, you go down there, like I said, every time we go down there, there's a line of kids that would love to have this support, but we can only go this far, right? And so
Do you buy a school?
Could.
Right?
Yeah,
Is that something where you're like, okay, actually, if we just own the school, own the infrastructure, maybe we could just support more.
Which is interesting because there's one school in particular that we've been very fond of, and now we're supporting a lot of their kids because it's privately. We know the family really well. It's
safe.
It's safe. Yeah, it's a husband and wife who run it. His mom and dad. He's like the school psychologist there that helps out with it. And he's like she's the nurse, and like but now they're grown. They've got a bigger building, and it's been cool to see us support that. That's where we did the service project and everything there too. But we've even had students where we've had to house because both parents left them, and they're basically homeless at 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
And so we've thought before, rather with his real estate background, like, it would be so awesome to have several houses, and we could house these kids and get them the education. Because interestingly enough, sometimes we want a kid to join a school, but logistically it's impossible for them to get there.
Yep.
Right? They can't get on 5 different buses, and how do we pay for everything to get to where we want them to go? And there's so much there, right? So like, yeah, if we could almost build like a community with it, but then beyond that, all the mental health and the other pieces that these kids ask us for assistance that we can't help with, it's insane, right? So I think, yeah, to your point, the sky's the limit on where we could take this, but it's also knowing, I think, where not to help. Because sometimes where you can help and you're actually doing more damage than good, where, it's good to struggle a little bit. It's okay to not say, hey, we're not going to help you pay for this because, that's not within our wheelhouse. It was in COVID, it was crazy because kids are like, well, now we got to go from studying at the school, and now everyone's at home too, just because just like we're buying laptops, we're paying for internet at kids' houses, kids are needing glasses, kids are like the stuff that we never thought of. It's like, oh my gosh, now we got to do this because it all is within that education bucket. But then we had kids that were like, yeah, I'm really struggling mentally, I'm in depression, I don't know what to do. It's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, we'll try to find someone to help you out, but that's not what we do, right? And so I guess it's probably not a great answer to your question, but there's so much that can be there. And I think my heart always says, go for the moon. Like, scale the thing as far as you can, help as many as you can.
Yeah.
But logistically and feasibly, it just hasn't been there just yet. So.
And okay, now this is my advice. Don't scale everything.
Sure.
Right? Like, the more narrow your focus, the better you're going to do at the thing you are good at. Right. So, I think that's hard when you deal with a population that kind of needs everything.
Sure.
Right? And I can only imagine the heartache of turning people down, or the logistics just don't work, or you fell out of the system because your parents had to move, right? And then the laptops and the COVID thing. Okay, this is somewhat unrelated, but I find that and I think in this country, there is a growing movement from the right, from the Christian right. Okay? Thinking not about, we kind of grew up here, we understand this LDS culture, the church culture. So that fits really well with your, what you're doing down there with the mission and everything.
Right.
But outside of here, there is a growing Christian right that, it's a big thing. And there's some commercial value in I know somebody with a brand, but it's a Christian brand. And their brand is growing right now because there's a lot of young people who are into it and it's movement. Do you think that have you thought about leveraging that in a bigger way?
No.
Like with the South, or with this growing movement of young people who are a little bit to the right and religious more than they have been in the past? It just seems like a huge opportunity because there's got to be money out there.
I think to your point, when you put things in, hand it over to God, and the timing, there's times where you have to be patient, and I've defined patience as acceptance of divine timing, but the divine timing feels like this is coming together to support this program.
Yeah, I think when we come to terms with the fact that it's not our charity, it's not our work, it's his, we just, again, we're willing and able, and then you kind of watch, this podcast is a proof of it itself. Had we not met Jeremiah and you guys, I would have never asked for this, but here we are, right? Yeah. And our hope is that this reaches an audience. And then to your point, that connects with different brands and that continues to grow and snowballs.
It's kind of a different group of people who could help fund.
Right? And as mentors that can jump on these webinars with these kids too, or however, right? There's so many ways to help out with it versus just writing a check, which some people kind of think charity, I got to write a check and I'm just going to donate money to it and then walk away. A lot of times you want to be involved. You want to watch this kid. We've had kids that have donated and said, I want to sponsor this individual, and I want to be involved with his or her entire career through it. You could, there's just, I feel like we want to have someone that's intimately engaged in it, but the brands can be part of that, is saying, hey, how can we help with it? We've even thought about this last year. Could we sponsor a soccer team down there? Because that's a major piece, right, behind this, just culturally in Guatemala. Even though it doesn't really have anything to do with schooling just yet. We haven't said yes to it because we're to your point, that's too broad of an arrow maybe. Yeah. But it's a group of kids that probably 9 out of 10 kids on that team are probably going to be in the gang or already are. Yeah. Could we then start peeling back that onion a little bit and helping these kids out through soccer and getting them into education? I don't know, right? But I think there's ways for sure. And if there's a cool soccer brand that's backed with Christianity that may want to, I don't know. I think there's ways to go there potentially.
One of the things about scale you're talking about, one of the things I love that we're able to do now, and Scott's way better at this than me, is he knows every kid's name, right? So I think if we were to scale till we got to the point where maybe we lost touch with that, I don't know if that would, be accomplishing as much. I mean, it's going to still do good, right? It's always going to do good if we're helping people. But he knows
but
names.
your point is you want to succeed 100% with the people you help.
And keep it
Instead of
intimate
just,
and personal.
Yeah, which he does that very, very well. So I struggle with remembering all the kids' names, and I do faces better. But he's like, oh, so-and-so is going through this, and he's very much involved with their lives. Not just, here's a check, go to private school, go to college, see ya.
Call us when you're done.
Call us when you're done. We'll come celebrate once a year. No, he's involved. We get those updates from those connections we have in Guatemala. And so, I don't know. We'll just have to see as we scale, do we peak and reach a point to where we feel like we're missing some of those opportunities to keep it individualized? It's a great question. We haven't hit that point yet. So
yeah, we've had one kid so far in the 8 years that's not made it, and it still rips my heart out.
Yeah.
Kid's name's Danny, and again, we have his little brother actually, who was if I were to bet on the two of them, like we met Danny the first time, like this kid gets it. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He just needs the help going that whole direction. And then, sure enough, it's like 2 months from graduating high school.
2 months.
And all of a sudden, get emails from the teachers. Hey, we haven't seen him. I'm like, what are you doing? Finally, come to find out, he's like, oh, I decided I just want to go be a mechanic. I'm like, what? He's like, so I got a job fixing motorcycles. I'm like, dude, okay, first of all, like this costs money, right? And like you just like threw it all away. Like we paid in advance for the entire year. And he's like, oh, I didn't realize that. And I was like, well, okay, come on, Danny. Like you're a smart kid. And so like we ended up going through this, and we finally said, look, you're going to have to go redo your entire senior year again. I'm willing to pay it again. Mm-hmm. Will you do it? And he's like, yes, I guarantee I'll make this happen. I'm sorry, like bad mistake. Got it, cool. I got the pressures of wanting to make money now, and just like, but dude, you're 2 months away. Like, don't give up on me, please. Sure enough, start the next year. He's going through his whole second year of senior year. 6 months in, haven't seen Danny. Where's he at? Sure enough, back at the mechanic shop fixing motorcycles again. Just didn't have that long-term perspective, and just risked my heart out. Like he was so close. It was there, right? But yeah, it's like at some point, but then we have one other kid who's on the cusp right now. His name's Kevin, who he's not going to church. Great grades, he's doing everything, which from when he first started, kid hated going to school. We had to like force him to get the grades. Now he wants to be a teacher. Like imagine that flip, right?
Yeah.
And so like, okay, now you want to be a teacher, but he won't involve Christ in his life. I'm like, buddy, we had a conversation with him a month ago. You signed a contract. We don't. Like, yes, we care about schooling and education. That's just one pillar, though. Like, if you try to do this without Christ, you're setting yourself up for long-term failure. And he wouldn't go to church. We finally got him back to, like, do we actually drop a kid because he's not
this is
including...
This is a whole different
Like,
animal.
talk about a moral dilemma, man. Like, I was texting Riley, we were texting
Right?
friends. Like, what would you do in this situation? Would you tell a kid no longer come to school because you're not coming to church?
Yeah, I mean... It's rough because I'm gonna say something different than what you guys would say, and I don't run the organization, right? And we have rules in clinic, right? You're doing this, you're doing that, you're getting your prescriptions, you get them every month, you fill early. Like, what are the reasons?
Yeah.
And then we have to decide, what's the protocol? Okay, and not everybody agrees with the protocol we have, and we're not all going to agree on the protocol you guys have, but you got to decide.
Right.
And
you set a precedent by saying you can slide,
Of course,
but none of the other kids can't.
That's such a huge part
course,
of it, right? Is you can't.
Because I know exactly where I'm sending him back to if we say you're not coming to school anymore.
Yeah.
I know exactly where he's going.
Sure, fascinating.
And I'm not living with that. I was like, golly. Luckily, we met with him and he said, I'll go to church, and he has been going to church. So like we haven't had to make that hard choice, but like we're right there to make that hard choice. Because honestly, the answer is yes, we have to stop. Because that's what he signed. We're teaching him a bigger lesson. And that's what we're saying we're helping could hurt, right? Is that we're going to continue to put him through education, even though he's not living up to the other pieces of his contract he signed.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's why owning a school is maybe the answer, because then you can just pray in school and you can call it church.
There you go.
Dude, he's on to it. You're hired.
So that's Kevin, right? That is at the not going to church. I want to get back to Danny real quick and his story, because now he's at the mechanic shop, but you mentioned he's got a younger brother, and his younger brother is in the program?
That's Kevin. Kevin is his younger brother.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, like odds. What are the odds, right? It's like this whole family.
Yeah.
Because he got another brother named Carlos who chose not to be part of the program until he found out that we gave them a laptop during COVID, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, I want to be part of this." It's like, and we told him no. Like, sorry, but that's just you had your chance, you blew it, and now you're gonna watch your brothers. And like we gave him chances. Like you can like actually show us that you want to be part of this, and he never did. He just wanted the free laptop. So we're like, I don't know what he's doing now, to be honest. But yeah, so weird. But yeah. So Kevin gets to see his older brother do what he did. Complete 180. This kid was getting in fights in school. Like I don't know what happened, but a year and a half later, he's all of a sudden wants to be a teacher. He's got best grades. He's an honor student. Like it worked, but he's been in the program since the very beginning. He almost broke our rules too, because we wanted to start with just teenagers. He was a little kid. Yeah. But we're like, yeah, let's bring you along. We actually just did tutors for him after school because he wanted to stay. It was a whole thing, but yeah, it's a interesting dynamic between the two of them.
You know, I'm not going to get political on this, but I think about last administration, and Kamala Harris was in charge of root causes of immigration and this kind of thing.
Sure.
And so much of it was that people were leaving to come to a better life. I love what you're talking about, which is there are opportunities in their home country that they may not be aware of or may not have the resources. And again, going back to government funding is not, in my opinion, the solution unless they're funding a charity or a program like yours. But what's happening is people are beginning to grow their worth in their own country, and that's a huge deal. And I would imagine that some of them have to be, I guess, educated to understand that is a possibility. Do many of them feel like this is the only route that I have to any kind of short-term, long-term success is to join a gang and get involved, and that's how I'm going to make money, and understanding that I'm giving my life to the gang now. When they get presented with an opportunity like what you're offering, are they eager to go to that? Is there some resistance because it's unfamiliar to them?
I mean, it's resistance just like if you were to tell your kids that you're moving.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got to leave my friends. I got to leave this. Like, that's not great. And then we got to have the same compelling story because the gang's telling the same thing. We'll be your family. Yeah. We'll give you the money. We'll get you education. Like, we got you on all that stuff. So they're telling the exact same story we're telling them. Like, we'll be your family. We'll get you an education. The money will come if you invest in yourself. They've got to take that and choose with that. Luckily, again, that's where those mentors locally kind of take those kids into their arms too and say, hey, come with us. Like, we got you. We're going to be there with you. But no, it's there's definitely two competing sides there that we have to compete with and show them that the longevity behind that. But my favorite story so far is we had a girl named Mariana who was, oddly enough, so her dad, I think he passed away. He passed away a long time ago. She was involved heavily in alcohol, ended up running away with some other alcoholic and just left her.
How old?
She's 16 at the time. But only I think 8th grade education at that point. We ended up finding a home for her. So as part of our pieces, we found another family who had, they happened to have a space. So we'll take her on. So we had kind of paid them a little bit of a stipend to help to feed her and room and board and stuff and house her. But she had severe mental issues, constantly talking about she's depression. You think about it, my mom just left me for some guy I shouldn't even know. I'm worth nothing. Yeah. And we're trying to tell her, no, Mariana, you are worth something. You can do something. She graduated top honors in school. She's now going to become a veterinarian. And she not only got there's universities, right, that are free with the government, but there's top private ones that she got a full ride scholarship to that, which is insane, right? So I'm look, Mariana, look what you did, right? And it's just, man, you see that, what you can do with it. And so I think she's been a really cool example, I think, for the other kids to see that, someone can be successful here no matter how bad you have it. So yeah, I think to answer your question, long story short around that is, I think that's the vision behind not only having the successful stories of these kids, the mentors that we bring in on these video calls to show them that there's possibilities there. But there's so many opportunities and jobs within that country that you can stay there and have a happy family, make a lot of money, and be happy and successful.
Yeah, and one of the things we're trying to teach them is that success necessarily always isn't about money. So a lot of the mentors we have have just normal jobs. One of them's a painter. One of them works over facilities for the church down there. Like not a lot of our mentors are like doctors, or we do have doctors that have come on and, from Central America that will do the Zoom calls and speak to them and motivate them and say, hey, you guys' possibilities are limited. But also we want to show them that, hey, you can be happy being a painter, right? You can be happy doing these things, but what it comes down to for happiness is family, a purpose, and God, right? And so that's what we're trying to teach these kids. But it is pretty wild to think that we're going to have a student that's going to be way smarter than me, right? Like we're putting somebody through, we help somebody go through school that now is going to be a vet that I would never be able to do that. So that's kind of awesome. Yeah.
Where did excuse me, I'm sorry, Tim, but where did obviously you both have religious backgrounds. As you're putting together these pillars and having not necessarily religion, but a spiritual component as part of it, how did that come about? Was that foundational for you? It's like this has got to be part of it. And then how do you find yourself implementing it? You said that they don't have to join a specific church, but they have to have Christ in their life in some way, shape, or form. How have you been able to do that? Do most of them come from a religious background, or are you introducing some of that to them, and how do you achieve that?
Thankfully, Central America is a very Christian-heavy culture, right? So I think Christ is, it's on billboards and buses, and you can't go a day without seeing Christ down there. So I think, honestly, that's not been a big struggle to get the kids to say, it's more the application of going and doing it.
But for you, why was that so important as part of the 4 pillars?
I think going through what made me want to start this was because of Christ, right? And finding that longer eternal purpose, right? Because education will come and go, money will come and go, but like Christ will always be there, right? And no matter what we do from the time we were born on this earth to when we die, what actually matters? It's not going to matter if what position I had at XYZ company or how much my W-2 was or anything like that. It's going to matter, like, did I help someone that could have eternal ramifications with while they were here, so the next life is successful too, right? And so the only way to do that is in and through Christ, in my opinion, right? And so that, I think, is foundational, because although we should probably make it a bigger piece, the education piece is just a stepping stone towards, it's going to be really hard, I guess, to have Christ in your life when you're struggling and you're in the dumps and you're homeless and you're in the gangs and having all that influence behind you. But once you kind of get ahead of it a little bit and you see that you've got education, you've got a family, and you got all these things, like Christ can then be a very big piece of that whole thing and come help bring others with you, right? So to me, I don't think there is an option without him, to be honest. Like, that is absolutely number one piece.
It's interesting because I view that as perspective. So I would just relabel that just a little bit. That you have the education piece, but the religious piece brings perspective. It brings perspective of why you're here, what you're doing here, what really matters, right? It brings everything down to now. Your life is now. Your life situation is what's around you. The religious piece brings you back to now. This is life.
Interesting.
The religious piece, that Christ piece, that why, right? And that's what keeps people there, keeps people motivated. Because in the end, whether you believe that this continues, whether you believe it just ends at the end, that brings us all back to what we're doing right now. What are you doing right now to help other people? What are you doing right now to help yourself? I like it. I like the pillar.
Sure.
I think that it brings a community of people to find others, to really fellowship, right? It's the group therapy thing. It's the AA thing, right? Like, this works better if we're a group.
Yeah.
And you struggle with the groups that exist down there because you're competing with the gangs.
Right.
They're kind of like another form of religion.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? And so this seems like it really is going to work. Like, it's worked 8 years, but I think this really does work.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're focused on the person. Knowing the names of the people, like, it makes a lot of sense. How this works. Now, do you find that there's been more discussion now that we've had a shift in politics and you've had a lot of news about El Salvador and the prisons and all of this sort of stuff. Are you finding that people are talking more about this? Like, oh, we're not moving, we're not trying to get to the U.S. You know, people are coming back here. Like, has that affected the nonprofit, the work?
I would think that it's kind of motivated them to be like, okay, how can I, how can I create success and happiness here, right? Because there's always been this down there as we were there. Every time I was down there, there'd be.
Take me with you.
I'd see a whole family, and then one Sunday or whatever, we wouldn't see him anymore. Where'd he go? Oh, he went chasing the American dream. What happens? He ends up in, L.A. in a gang and not doing good things, and ends up actually stop sending money back and stuff like that. So
they're back.
Yeah, or get sent back or whatever. So I think it's really helping them, like, kind of making them. Maybe the American dream's not what I need, not what I want. And it has created, I think, a little bit of anxiety down there. I mean, even when we were down there in November, right? They were. They were talking about
what's going to happen.
Yeah, what's going to happen exactly. And that's why we just focus on, like, wherever you find yourself, you just got to create the best. And I love that you said perspective. You just got to have the perspective, no matter what cards you're dealt, create the best situation for you. And that's through Christ, education, and these things. And we want them to be well-rounded. If we just harped on education, they might get all this education and then be unhappy and then go fall back into the gangs, right? So we're trying to.
Well, I mean, you need very, very good chemists to make drugs. These are very educated people, right?
Right.
So education on its own doesn't necessarily
100%.
solve the problem.
No.
Yeah, great point.
Breaking Bad too.
Yeah.
I think we've seen, yeah. If you haven't seen it, you should see it, because those are smart people.
You guys are 8 years in. I'm thinking of, you and your wife Brooke, and you're having this conversation, and you're saying we want to do this. Like, how did you do it? Did you just show up in
And like,
Guatemala
hey, I'll
or
just
Salvador
donate some
and-
money?
Yeah,
Right?
it's like I mean, because that's not your background.
No.
Right? You're
No.
in finance and tech, and I mean, you do have a degree, I think, in tourism and hospitality,
Started
which
there,
which
yeah.
is
Ended up in
interesting to
sales
figure out,
management, but yeah.
how you end up, for all of us, we look at our
Yeah.
early decisions and degrees. It's like, I don't know what I did with that, but how did you go about executing this at the very beginning?
Oh my God, to be honest, I don't remember clearly on it. I feel like I've got a gift for just doing it. I think sometimes you get stuck in like analysis paralysis, where people are like, I want to do this idea, and then years and decades pass by and you still haven't done anything. And so I think we started with just let's just do something. That's what we started with. Like, let's just help one kid.
Yeah.
And so it started with reaching out to those former companions of ours, saying, hey, do you know how does the school system, being very inquisitive of just, and start learning through this stuff. And that's when we started unraveling the need. Like, oh, I didn't realize that the gang violence is actually in the school system. I thought it was just outside of that.
Yeah.
So they don't have a safe haven here. Okay, well, let's fix that. Okay, then I know, okay, well, how are we going to get them here? And then how are we going to start there? How are we going to continue to keep an eye on them? And like, so all those pieces just kind of started coming together.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, hey, I broke up a business plan, went to the bank and said, hey, here, fund this kind
Yeah.
of thing, right? You normally would in America. It was very much of, hey, we got the idea, started researching and learning about it and doing it. Honestly, it was our first trip down there was, I think, we learned the most, because we went down there and saw it firsthand, interviewed everybody, and then came back and said, okay, we got a pretty good idea of where the need is. Let's start helping. And start going from there.
That's actually inspiring in itself, because I think there's people who are watching that have had great ideas, like, I'd really like to do this, I want to help some people, and they think about it for a lifetime.
Yep.
And never really, as you said, you have a gift for just going and doing it. So that's a big deal.
Here's a funny story, though. So you know, everyone says, like, when you have a dream, like, oh, my dream was to start this company. My dream was to be this entrepreneur. Like, it never clicked until you actually realize, until you're actually dreaming about it, that it is a dream of yours. So, like, funny, this for me started with an actual dream I had of, it was funny, we were like, there's no cruises down to El Salvador on the Pacific side that I'm aware of, but my wife and I were on a cruise ship broke down. We got stuck in El Salvador permanently. And that's when I started going to church, and like, okay, and then they gave us a calling in the church, and I could work with the youth program there. And
Wait, you ended
This
up...
is the dream?
This is the dream.
Oh, I
Yes.
was like, I didn't know about this.
No.
I was like, I don't even know him.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, so I had this dream that our cruise ship broke down, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm like, we're now living in it, so we started going to the church down there, and I'm working in that ward and whatever. And finally, we get the cruise ship fixed, we can go home back to Washington at the time. And so I tell the bishop there, I'm like, hey, you know what? I love the kids. We'll come back every couple months, or at least once a month, and I'll be here for Sunday.
Yeah.
Because I'm like so committed to the kids now. And so like when I woke up from the dream, I was like, that's how I got to do it. We got to, not the cruise ship piece, but like I got to go down there. I got to go down there and meet these kids, and then we've got to like get to know everybody and get involved. And then once you get there, the work will come around. So yeah, it started with the dream.
And then you just get started.
You get started, and I think from you get started, then everything just starts going. If it's really God's plan, if He really wants you to do it, all those pieces will start to fall into place. If not, they'll
you're
fall
going to
out
end
of
up
place.
sitting next to Ryler on the plane.
Yeah.
Coincidentally,
Yep.
a couple of times it's like, okay, God, I think we're getting the message.
There are no
Yeah,
coincidences.
and I got to give props to Scott because I had gone back to El Salvador twice, and then I did a little charity called Building El Salvador, and it was just to like help them build stuff. We helped a family with a little house, and we actually added on to a school. And then I let it, my dream, didn't fade, but I got back into life and let it fizzle. And then Scott approached me, I think knowing because I had a great love for Central America, and I'd been down there a bunch. So I kind of know the logistics and how to plan a trip down there and everything. He's like, I want to do this idea, and I was thinking, oh yeah, my brain, I'm thinking it's going to take a couple of years. No, it was like 3 months later, like I found a kid. We got somebody to help us. I'm like, whoa, he's committed. Yeah. Let's do this. So it's been his brainchild. He's the one rolling it out. I kind of have supported a little bit, but that's what's awesome is you just got to do it, right? Take that step and do it. We started small. We didn't have 12 kids right from the get-go, right? Like we started very small, self-funded, and just have tried to build it that way. So,
has there been an improvement in general life there in the 8 years you've seen? Because I think people, so from our perspective in the U.S., I think people think like it's not improving in the third world and the second world. But if there are some books, there's a book called Factfulness that was written, I think, 15 years ago about the improvement over the past 50 years of general life in these countries. Do you feel like 8 years is enough? You've seen like general improvement. More people have washers and dryers and more people are making a little bit more money. Or is it pretty stagnant?
I mean, I feel like in the cities for sure. I mean, you go down to Guatemala City, I mean, there's Taco Bells and skyscrapers and
malls,
everything you would ever imagine. You feel like you're in downtown Salt Lake to a point, but then you go outside of that, and I feel like that's a spitting image from when we were there.
Yeah, I'd say El Salvador's probably made more improvement. They use the dollar in El Salvador, and the new president down there's done tons of work,
especially on the gang side.
The gang side and stuff. I would say more so in El Salvador probably started behind a lot of the other Central American countries, so it's kind of caught up. But I would definitely say, I would say in the years that I've seen an improvement overall, mostly maybe in the cities where it's a little more American, that's not the right word, more commercialized. There is a lot of American influence. Like you said, there's more American restaurants down there than there are a lot of their own local restaurants, right?
The kids were blown away when we went down in November about how sophisticated the McDonald's were down there.
Oh, they're 2 stories.
2 stories, everything. It's almost like an experience to go to fast food down there. Like they're making balloon.
Yeah, I took my son into the playroom, the playground area, and they made him a balloon animal at McDonald's. Right?
You guys don't remember that was a thing.
Oh, see?
When I had a birthday party at McDonald's, it was a thing here.
Okay, well it's a thing there now.
Yeah.
So maybe that gives you perspective. However old you are. That's
but yeah, I'd say there's been improvement for sure.
And is the government supportive of your program and what you're doing, and how do they support you in that regard? Is it just, outside of, financially, are they looking at what you're doing and appreciative of your efforts to improve the lives of their local citizens?
I don't think we've gotten that far yet.
I think we're small enough.
The schools are, for sure. The kids are. The community, like, there's been stuff like that where it's been absolutely, like, so this school that we helped, Junto de la Promesa, is, again, privately owned, and man, they post about us on their Facebook page, and it's just cool to see, like, the unraveling. Like when we came down the first time, remember that they rolled out their entire band for us.
Oh yeah,
like it was like we were like these dignitaries coming in from
it was
like treated us like amazing. It was incredible. We're like we're nobody. So like that was fun to see. Like they genuinely though take you in like your family. They don't even know you, and they're gonna give you anything you wanted to help you succeed. So,
and that school he's talking about, they've COVID had an impact on them, hurt their numbers, but they've gone from I think 60 kids in COVID to we're not all of this, but I think we've helped kind of with their culture a little bit. They've gone to 180 this last year and looking to get to 250 as far as kids that come to these school. And even if they're not part of our program, that school is having an impact on kids that are out of our program as well. Providing actually it's a pretty affordable private school option comparatively to like what we'd have here in America, right?
Yeah.
And so it's given us an opportunity to be able to afford to send more kids because it's a little more affordable than like here.
And I think as you look at the progression, as you continue to have success, and I'm relating this to my experience in addiction recovery, alumni programs are huge. Like they make a huge difference to have a community of people that have gone through the program, been successful, and they become mentors. The local kids that are going through the program, how's your alumni, and how do they interact with the kids that are going through the program now, and how has that played out for you guys? I got to imagine it's been a huge part of the continued success.
Oddly enough, that was one of my biggest misses, I feel like. On our graduation ceremony we had in November, we didn't have any of our former graduates there. It's a super miss.
Now we have, when we started, most of the kids were young, so it's not like we have
We don't have 100
50.
kids.
We don't have too many that have gone. Now we are, and
We have
obviously,
them now, though.
I think we could utilize them a lot more.
Yeah, especially on these webinars, like I said, that they are the success story, right?
Yeah.
And evangelizing that more is going to be of the utmost importance, in my opinion, too. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get a letter from the University of Utah every year.
amen. You
Please
get that letter, too?
donate to your program.
Yeah, your program.
Right, your program. We helped you, you help us. Give back.
That being said, for people that are watching this and they're thinking, hey, you know what? I serve the Spanish-speaking mission. I'm successful now. I've been looking for something I could do to be a mentor to a kid. How do they go about doing that? And the website or the action steps that they might need to take to get involved.
Yeah, so here's a misnomer that I think is important to call out. It's not the amount of money that's required to support a kid down there is not nearly what you would think it would be.
Yeah, it's under $1,000 if
yeah,
what
I mean,
read was
$900
correct,
on average.
Yeah.
Some are significantly less, like the $600 range for full year tuition, books, uniforms, you name it, like everything they need to have their full year. Like, so I mean, ask yourself, like, how much do you spend on like simple stuff? Like if you go
restaurants,
eating out once a week or something like that, like that could help a kid.
Yeah,
like that's, I think, perspective to have a little bit. It's not like I want to put a kid through private education in the United States. It's like, yeah, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? It's very easy, I think, for a couple bucks a month where you could actually have an impact there. Outside of that, though, we like to do other things to kind of create this culture, right? Where we send these kids on field trips. Like, we'll send them to the beach. Some have never been to the beach before. We send them to the beach.
They live 2 hours from the beach.
Right. It's like, so we do little things like that outside of, we buy them Christmas presents and birthday presents, like help them just kind of feel the love. Because again, we're kind of their family to a point. So there's little things like that where donations go, and but against 100%, like we don't take anything. Everything goes to the kids. Our website, unlimit-aid.org is our website. We have links there where you can donate. We also have Venmo set up where you can donate through there.
You can get our contact info if you want to be on one of the Zoom calls, the webinars, to talk to these kids and motivate them.
Yeah. Like I said, yeah, if you're in a spot where you're saying, hey, I would love to, but I just don't have the money, totally fine. Like I said, we could help there. Second piece would be if you have a kid that wants to be on a trip with us because you feel like they want that experience, let us know. Like we have organizations where Cook Solutions Group, who I work for, has provided internships for these kids in the past where they said, hey, we'll pay for your trip, but you can come work with us, get the work experience as a result of it, and then we'll pay for your trip down there. In fact, the kid that just went down with us as well, he won that build the video that you watched. That was sponsored by Cook Solutions Group to help do that too. So there's different ways to help and get involved depending on where you feel like you're at on this. Whether you have a kid that wants to be part of it, whether you want to support financially or help on the calls that we do, or you name it, we could take it.
You guys are doing this kind of on the side. Is the ambition at some point? Would you love to be able to do this full time at some point in your lifetime or career?
I'm looking at my wife. I look at my wife over there because she knows my answer is absolutely yes. And I want to do it well before I'm old and decrepit. Like I want to be able to do it when, like as soon as possible would be ideal. Like, because again, in my opinion, like you can work a job and then be done, and that's it. But the perspective that I got to me is I want to do something that's got eternal implications now, and helping kids now, and giving them the opportunity to succeed and thrive is what I'm focusing on. But we'll see when that time comes.
Yeah, and I still think too that one of the really special opportunities here is not just for the kids that you're helping down there and the kids that you're exposing to that are living here in the States, but your own kids.
Yeah.
Right. You think about the opportunity that you have to give them that experience, and you're modeling something for them that is priceless.
I almost ruined it too. Our first trip down. So our middle kid Kobe, he took him out of the age where like he's still putting everything in his mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, we went and visited a kid, and it was in a really rough area. Somehow he found something in the gutter, which was actually their sewer drainage.
Yeah.
Sure enough, goes right in the mouth. Like the next day, he starts throwing up and throwing up.
Oh no, we're taking. So we took brooms and soccer balls to the school, right?
Yeah.
Items they needed. Tell them what happened.
Yep, and sure enough, we show up with all these stuff, and then Kobe, we walk over and say, "Here you go." He just goes, "Bruh," just throws up all over. I was like, "Oh no!" But sure enough, the school, he's got the nurse there. So he's trying to give him like medicine and stuff. We thought he was car sick because the bus we were taking was kind of whining all over the place. He's throwing up. We then leave from there, go to the airport. He's throwing up. We lost track. I mean, he was starting to go like pink. His eyes were sinking in. We're like, "This is emergency mode." Get all the way to Houston. We get off the plane, he's still throwing up. We go all, I mean, it's like at midnight now. And first thing he says is, "I'm never going back to Guatemala again, Dad." I'm like, "Oh man, that was the point. I want you to come back," right? Sure enough, as soon as he sits his butt on the chair and the bill starts, he's like, "I feel great." So something went through his system, and sure enough, they gave him, it was the most expensive little piece of little pill I got, and a little cup of water, and that was all he needed. But
he did go back.
He did go back. He went back this last November, and
he loved it.
He loved it again.
Yeah.
So. We almost ruined him for life and everything, but glad the kids. Because yes, the kids are.
And nobody got sick this last trip.
Yeah. Well, maybe we conclude with just a message that you might have for people that are watching this podcast today, and maybe have some ambition or want to get involved. You know, this is a startup just like any other startup, right?
Yeah.
How do they go about that? What was, what is the advice that you would give to somebody that has that dream to do this?
I mean, that's it. I mean, if it's not a dream, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because the realization I had, probably in the year 3 or 4, was you're not committing to this kid for 1 year. You're committing to them for multiple years, all the way through. And so if it's just a whim, don't do it, because you'll do way more harm than good. So like, just like with starting a business, right? Like, you got to be all in on this. Otherwise, you're going to be hit with that reality really quickly that this is bigger than what you're trying to do. Yeah. So be committed to it. If it's your heart and your passion, then just do it. Like, don't stop. Don't overthink it. Like, just get started some way. Even if it's just a little bit, I think getting started is going to be the difference on that, to be honest. And if you want to be with us, we can kind of start with our piece. And if you want to peel off and do your own thing later, we're happy to help teach and mentor on that piece too, personally. So I think there's a number of different ways to get started, but I think knowing what that dream is, what that vision is, what that passion is, and then do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for having us on this podcast. If you had told us even our first trip to Guatemala, we'd be on a podcast with such stellar people like yourselves, with CEOs and stuff like that, I'd be like, well, really? No way. But it's grown to that, and I just think just do what your heart tells you to do to get involved and help out how you can, when you can, and where you can.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be huge, right? Just start small.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, Tim, thank you for the sponsoring of this podcast. And if you want to
it's our pleasure.
Our viewers know, how they can get involved with Kindly MD.
Yeah, absolutely. So kindlymd.com. You can reach out to us, and in fact, if you want to get involved with Unlimit Aid and you can't remember the website or something, go to email us at hello@kindlymd.com, and we'll put you in touch. And come see us if you need any health care.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And again, this is our Daily Progress podcast, and presented by iiNCHES Foundation, and it's all about daily progress. So we appreciate what you guys are doing to support those efforts, not just here in the United States, but really having a global impact. So thank you for that.
No, appreciate you guys having us on.
Great story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe out there.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Daily Progress by iiNCHES Foundation. Thanks to the hosts of Daily Progress, Tim Pickett and Alema Harrington. Great job, guys. And special thanks to our guests, Scott Fieber and Ryler Masco. Guys, thanks for the work that you're doing with unlimitaid.org. For those of you who are listening, you can visit their website, unlimit-aid.org, and learn how you can help them in their mission to help others have safe access to education through private schooling. They're doing a great job. They deserve our support. Now, on our end, we want to thank our sponsor. This episode isn't possible without the generous sponsorship of Kindly MD. We want you to take a look at kindlymd.com and learn about how you can help revolutionize healthcare by supporting Kindly MD. You can also go to nasdaq.com and search stock symbol KDLY. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast. We also invite you to send us a message if you've got someone that you want us to interview or a topic that you want us to tackle. You can email us at progress@inches.org, and inches is spelled with 2 I's. Let's keep finding ways to get better, even if it's just by inches daily, because remember, inches become miles after a while. See you soon.